question is that the grievance be noted, and I give the call to the member for Indi.
Tonight, I'd like to talk about the need for a national student travel concession card. It is an issue that's dear to the heart of the young people who live in my electorate of Indi, and particularly those young people who are caught in the cross-border anomaly of wanting to go and study interstate. So let me just sort of outline what the procedure is. We've got a national issue here that really works to the disadvantage of not only young people, but people who want to go to study. It's particularly relevant in my electorate, but right across Australia, people who want to go and live in another area to where they're studying. So let me explain what happens now. Travel concession cards are issued by the tertiary institution in which a student is enrolled, and they're only applicable for travel within the state or territory of that institution. So, for example, a student from Indi in northeast Victoria who enrolls to go and study in Albury across the border, or Canberra or Sydney, for example, cannot get a concession on public transport travel to and from their hometown. There's been a whole lot of work done on this in the past, but it seems to have gone off the agenda. So my call tonight is we really seriously need to put back the need for a national student card back onto the national agenda. There's been recognition in the past that student income support has been inadequate to cover the costs of all the things that students need: accommodation, food, bills and transport. There was a Senate Standing Committee on Education, Employment and Workforce Relations and an inquiry into student income support in 2005. There was also an interjurisdictional working group was established in October 2011 to examine reciprocal recognition of student concessions between states. However, there was no evidence of any meeting actually taking place. And there's a perception that while people can talk about this idea of a national student concession card is a good idea, but it's a practical nightmare because it requires all the states and the territories to sign up and agree to standardising their concessions. So surely we are mature enough as a nation on this particular issue, and with all the discussion about federation, that we could actually work together to do something that would make such a big difference to the lives of so many students. It appears that the challenge of achieving recognition of concession cards across jurisdictions may be perceived to be too hard, but I believe this is a perception, that in reality there are so many areas where we work across states, we have national regulations. I know absolutely we can do it, but what we would require is the political will. And there's a really good example. In 2009, the Commonwealth Government supported senior cards and pensioner cards, and they made the National Partnership Agreement to compensate the different states for any loss of income, but they also recognised senior cards and pension cards and travel concessions across jurisdiction. So we've got a model there for pension cards and seniors that actually works. Why couldn't we apply this to student cards? This issue is just particularly come to my mind now because students in my community are going back to study. We've had O Week and students are now getting underway with their careers, or their pathways to their careers. Money's always short. Students are all looking for part-time jobs. And many of my local community from Wodonga and Wangaratta have come up here to Canberra to study. And it's fine, once the ANU or the University of Canberra issues concession cards, but these are not available in Victoria. And it's just so, you think, well, what makes that so hard? Surely we just have to agree to get that happening. But I went to the library, to that fantastic research facility we've got here, and I said, can you give me some background on what's going on here? And they said, yeah, it often comes up, but we've never been able to get any movement on it. And what I've discovered is it's not just student concession cards that's the issue. International students, depending on their visa, have particular issues. So different states and different visas have different rules about whether or not international students can get concession cards. There's absolutely no concession cards at all for travel for any part-time students. And frequently they're the most needy because they're the ones that are sort of trying to juggle study with work, with family life. And every single dollar is so important. But they can't get no part-time travel for students anywhere in Australia. So clearly that's a huge gap. And then this other area of postgraduate travel concession. All the states and territories, except for my state of Victoria, provide transport concessionary cards to postgrad students. But in Victoria, we don't do that. So we have undergraduate can get student concession cards within the state, but not postgraduates. It's like, what an anomaly. Why not? And particularly now in Victoria, we've got the Melbourne model of study where all students have to do two sections. They do their undergraduate general degree, then they go and do their master's degree where they specialise. So there's such a pathway, and students go on to do their postgrad, but it's actually part of the whole degree process, but they can't get student concessions. So it's just really causing so much angst in the families of the people that I represent. So what I wanted to do tonight was put this on the agenda to actually notice as a significant grievance for right across Australia, and particularly for our students who want to go interstate to travel, and those students who live in Albury-Wodonga have to cross the border to travel. It's just ludicrous. It's not that it's hard. I think it's not only that it's hard, I just think it takes political will. And the sad thing is we just don't have enough representation in this parliament of those young people. There's so few young people here in the parliament who actually can stand up and have their voices heard. So it relies on us, their representatives, to come forward and make the case. So to the young people of my electorate, but to all the people studying right across Australia, I just want to say to you that we do understand it and really prepared to make the case that it needs to be addressed. So in finishing my comments tonight, I want to say to the Department of Education, to the Minister responsible, whatever did happen to that interjurisdictional working group formed in October 2011, headed up by the ACTU, who are going to do some research. Did they ever meet? I suspect not. I suspect that it just got put into the too hard basket and wasn't addressed. So I would like to acknowledge the work of James Griffith in the library. Thank you for all that work you did in the background. To Ellen Martin, to Pam Turnbull and to Leah Nankervis for actually making me aware of this problem and helping me with the research for today. It's on the agenda. We've got a lot of work to do before we actually get the political will we know is needed to actually get the change we needed, but we've begun. Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker.
Well, the question is a grievance